Guys, I know I'm keeping you from lunch. I saw a few people sneaking out there, so I won't keep you too long. I'm going to keep this really lighthearted as well. So I'm going to do a really quick survey of the room. Like, how many of you, hands up, would consider yourself to be technical? Okay, I only see a few hands. So I will consider that the majority of this room is non-technical, right? So I'll approach this from an easy to understand kind of standpoint. Another survey. So how many of you guys have heard of the terms GameFi, NFT gaming, or play to earn? Hands up. Okay, a few more hands there. Okay, so what I'm going to do today is actually I'm going to try and link all of those terms together and help you understand how Web3 communities are actually linked to what we call guilds and have basically sprouted out of this play-to-earn movement. Right, so actually, another survey. How many of you guys know Axie Infinity? Okay, only a few of you guys. So Axie Infinity was actually one of the most successful Ethereum apps in the world, actually up till present day. It actually crashed the Ethereum network back in 2020, right? It went from 800 wallets up to 3 million wallets in the space of 8 months, right? And it was largely considered like one of the most successful apps ever built on Ethereum, right? They've actually, it's an NFT game, so and it was in development since 2018, right? But in 2020, there was this huge explosion that was driven by this one phenomenon that happened in the Philippines, and that's where I'm based. So I'm going to go into that. So how did it go from 800 wallets up to 3 million wallets? So there's this movement called play to earn, right? And this is something that NFT gaming allows, right? So by playing the game these days, now you can earn tokens inside the game, and those tokens are now convertible into real life money, into fiat, right? So what was happening in the Philippines is some people in 2020 discovered Axie Infinity, and then they realized they could earn $1,000 per month, right? And this is in the middle of COVID, in the peak of lockdown. So these people couldn't leave their house. A lot of people were losing jobs. And what happened is one person starts playing the game and then teaches their family how to play the game as well. They were teaching the brothers, the relatives, the cousins, and then soon enough, this one household was now teaching other households how to play the game, right? And suddenly there was like this massive proliferation of education happening, right, within these communities. Right? But was it just play to earn that was basically driving adoption? This was the narrative, but what was actually underlying driving the growth? So this is where my company comes in, right? So I work for a company called BlockchainSpace. We look into GameFi data analytics, right? And we're helping to build infrastructure for gaming guilds and Web3 communities around the world. Now, what we did is actually we built the world's largest guild database, right? So these guilds are what we consider Web3 communities, right? And by putting together all these analytics, we were able to determine kind of like who are these communities, where are they based in the world, what are they doing? And we were able to kind of like dig in to more and start to scope out kind of like how many of these communities actually exist around the world. And something that was quite breathtaking is this number over here, which is close to 24,000 guilds around the world, right? So if you remember, Axie Infinity boomed from 800 wallets up to 3 million wallets in the space of 8 months. Who was driving all that growth? And we found out that it was around 24,000 guilds around the world that was driving that growth. Now, the interesting thing about this is by digging in further into the data, we were able to determine that some of these communities or guilds, right, could be classified into different segments, right? And what we realized is that a large portion, 97% of them, actually fell within this micro guild category, right? So 97% of communities around the world that were driving growth into Web3 apps was coming from these kind of like Discord servers, right? And online communities between 10 to 100 people, right? Really, really interesting, because you're probably thinking like the largest communities around the world are probably driving all the growth. But actually what we were seeing is a lot of grassroots efforts happening through micro communities in countries like the Philippines, but it was also happening in South America. It was happening in other parts of Southeast Asia as well. And the interesting thing is that if you compared like the differences between those sizes of communities, you have kind of like the micro communities, which are between 10 to 100, but then you've got the macro, what we call the macro communities of over 1,000, right, in that server, and their pain points are very, very different. So if you consider like these big communities, they're very well funded, you know, they don't have the same kind of pain points as someone that's a small community, no funding, no software, you know, and they need to be supported. There's a lot of these communities around the world, right? We call them guilds. They're everywhere. There's absolutely a massive ton of guilds around the world. And then these guilds, what we see is that actually the way that they operate is actually the same as any other kind of business, right? We actually consider that these Web3 communities are run as digitally native businesses, right? And just like any other business, the pain points of running this business are exactly the same as running any other kind of business, right? You've got the same problems with tracking performance within the community, like who's contributing the most within the community, who's, how do I disperse funds to multiple people? How do I do payroll for like 100 people, 1,000 people, right? And then how do I do treasury management, accounting, community management, all of these things at scale, right? And that's where we started coming in and we started building all this automation and enterprise software to be able to automate the management of these communities or these guilds, right? So we were providing guild software to be able to do performance management, to be able to do automated payroll. So one-click solutions to be able to cash out 1,000 people in one go. We also believe that just like any other business, right, the earnings that you earn, so whether it's in a game online, right, those earnings still have to be spendable in the real life. So we came up with a mobile wallet, right, and this mobile wallet actually allows you to take your in-game tokens and actually spend this in real life. Now maybe you start to think about, okay, this really could become a real business. I'm earning online tokens, but then I'm spending what I earn online in real life, you know, in the hotel lobby, in the Starbucks around the corner. The other part that's needed for these businesses, because the space is so nascent, is research, right? So we need data analytics, and that's something that you can get access to through our website as well. So now we understand, right, 24,000 communities around the world. The majority of them were micro, between 10 to 100 people in these communities, right? Why are they so important? How did they proliferate, and how did they make education happen so quickly to go from 800 wallets up to 3 million wallets? Actually really simple, right? There's two things. So the first thing is they help with onboarding, right? So crypto is actually still very, very complicated, right? Still a lot of technical terms, right? When you talk to your friends, you still have to talk about seed phrases and the management of seed phrases. You still have to talk about gas when you make a transaction. Like a lot of these kind of terms just don't make sense to a lot of people if you're not familiar with these technical terms, right? So education is absolutely critical. And what's happening now is that these guilds, these communities are becoming the ones that educate people within these small communities, but they're proliferating around the world, right? The second part is what's happening is like things like community tournaments are happening where they onboard in mass new people into the system, right? And that's actually helping to drive a lot of adoption. So what's next? Well, we know now these communities are very important, these guilds are really important, but you need to be able to work out which are the good ones and which are the bad ones. So very importantly, and just on this last slide, Guild Hub is basically the verification portal, which is allowing people to work out, okay, who are these guilds? What is their track record? What is their reputation history by looking at on-chain metrics, right? And looking at like their past performance. If you guys have any questions, please find me at the end. All right, thank you.